Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining the webinar today. Essentially, last 3 months have been very difficult for globe considering the geopolitical situation. The fuel prices are increasing every week for last 2 weeks, and we are facing the heat literally of that geopolitical situation. Last 3 months, approximately 2 lakh crore have moved out of India. FIIs have been pulled, and we are also seeing the rupee getting weaker every week. All of that is going to impact all of us every single day, and we want to bring one of the major aspect of that, which is how do we insulate our logistic, how do we insulate our freight from this fuel shock. I have eminent speakers today. We have Ashok Goyal ji, who is the president of ITWA. We have Maxine, founder Magenta Mobility. Uh, we have Himanshu, who is the co-founder of Enviro Wheels. Achin Kaul, who is the vice president, Mobility and Transformation, Safe Express, and not the least, the Karthik Vijayan, who is the sustainability head for Amazon India operations. It have been a pleasure to work with all of these eminent speaker for last 4 years of my experience of freight electrification, and it's amazing to see them here. Um, let's We have a very small context setting presentation so that we understand what we want to achieve today. I'm going to share my screen, and uh, post that we will get to the questions and what is their on ground experience because of this fuel shock. Can you please confirm, Sama, if my screen is visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Super. So I think we spoke. Today is the World Environment Day. This is a time where environmental goal, energy independence goal, and reducing the logistic cost goal, all three goal absolutely align with each other. And we want to explore today how do we really insulate ourselves from this fuel shock, not only as a sector, but at the end of the day as a country. A very brief statistics. 88% of the crude oil what we use is imported. That means we are highly dependent, highly vulnerable to any energy crisis globally. One of the main reason why FIIs have been pulling out is our energy exposure, our diesel dependency exposure. 50 almost 64% of the imported diesel is consumed by truck. It's a significant number, and we will not be able to leave the truck discussion behind when we are talking about energy security for the country. 71% of the freight what we move is run on the road, so again it highlights the dependency. It's a very straightforward math, right? Global oil shock is going to pass on rise to us in terms of rising import bill. Rising import bill will increase the diesel price. It will increase the logistic cost. It will, at the end of the day, will impact us from every angle of the life. Everything what we buy from the even the corner vegetable shop is going to change because of this. At the same time, increasing import bill is in putting a lot of pressure on rupee weakening is in turn rising the import bill. So it's a completely vicious cycle, and freight electrification can be definitely one of the way to insulate ourselves from that. We ran a very quick detail analysis, and we did that for almost four different type of truck, right from 1.5 tonner to 55 tonner. And it clearly shows that when a diesel change from even 90%, 90 rupees per liter to 95 rupees per liter, there is a change in the TCO which have started happening. As understood from ITWA have already introduced a fuel adjustment factor, approximately 0.65%. I think this was number which was given last week, and we are going to learn about this more from Ashok ji in the call today. I think we spoke about this that approximately 838 billion liters cumulatively can be avoided if we go for truck electrification. At the same time, ZDT can offer potential saving 20 to 48% operational saving. Of course, there are multiple parameters which are going to affect this 24 to 48% asset utilization, whether the input electricity is coming from renewable or not, what's the landed cost, all of that, the operational efficiency, driver training. But we have the potential to reduce significantly because of use of electric truck, and emission has been one of the key pillar what can offered by zero emission truck. This is the very quick statistic. We put together how many trucks have been registered in India so far, and we have seen fourfold growth, and expectations is it is going to go much higher by 2050. Naturally, because our consumptions are changing, the way in which we shop is changing, the freight requirement itself is going to get fourfold by 2050. And if we are not able to keep a check emission in check, diesel usage in check, it is going to rise exponentially. uh, Till now we have seen pilot deployment for electric truck in multiple angles: cement, steel, metals, port, retail, e-commerce. I think when we hear more from our logistics service provider friends today, this will be more and more clearer. But we are able to see applications in practically every sector, different use cases. So today we want to really explore from how do we transition from that vulnerability, energy dependence vulnerability, to a resilient future. Can India seize the opportunity? Can we convert this calamity into an opportunity for truck electrification? Can freight electrification become really the shock absorber for freight sector, logistics sector? So, with the expert who have joined the webinar today, we are going to find out, first of all, how the transporters are coping with this rising fuel cost. How are they absorbing it? How are they passing it on, etc. How the diesel price volatility have actually improved the business case for electric truck. And we will explore from someone who is already running both type of truck, is it diesel truck as well as electric truck on the ground, and we will know from their hands-on experience how the freight I think we discussed earlier that because of the rising fuel cost, some of the use cases which were on the borderline of the business case are now becoming a positive business case. So how does the picture changing? In spite of the narrative getting stronger and stronger for zero emission trucking because of fuel, it doesn't mean that we have solved all the problem. So what are the barriers which still remain, and how do we really overcome them, and what action we need for accelerating the scale? So with that, I once again welcome every panelist expert here, and let's begin today's session. My first question I would like to share to Ashok ji. Ashok ji, you are president of ITWA. ITWA have already done fuel adjustment factor, and transporters have increased their freight rate. But we want to really understand more from you on that ITWA represents thousands of small fleet owner, uh, whose fuel, it's like the fuel itself is 40 to 50% of their operations cost. Since the West Asia crisis, the operations are getting volatile. Um, how the operations are changing? How much is getting absorbed? How much is getting passed on? What's the mechanism? Can you also throw some light on the fuel adjustment factor as well? Ashokji, over to you.
So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this webinar. Uh, Whenever there's a diesel hike, in fact, it is like death knell for the trucking industry, to be very, very honest. Most of the contracts have a clause of only increasing up to the level where the diesel has gone up. The fuel adjustment factor, which we have introduced recently, not only when diesel goes up, not only diesel goes up, but other ancillaries like now you have AdBlue, which is in BS6 vehicle, you have to add AdBlue, and the average is for every 100 liters, you have to add 7 liters of AdBlue. The cost of AdBlue has gone up from 1200 rupees for 20 liters to 1800 rupees every 20 liters. So you can look at the jump, almost 50% jump. That needs to be considered because it is compulsory that we have to add that. Similarly, most of the products related to the truck, for example, tires, they are also part of the this thing. In 2 months, the tire prices have gone up by 2,000 rupees. In 1 month, it has gone up by 1,000 rupees. So all these factors are not being considered when a customer uh, demands. When we ask for a hike from the customer. So that 0.65 which we have introduced is only actually reimbursing the cost which is actually incurred when there's a diesel hike. There is a clause in most of the contracts that diesel price hike up to 5% plus or minus will not be passed on, and the trucker has to bear it. Now that 5% when the diesel was, let's say, 60 rupees or 50 rupees, that was like 2.5 rupees. Now with it
Correct.
touching at 100 rupees and 5 rupees being a hike, and now since 50% of the cost is a diesel cost, it is not at all viable that we can run the show, or we don't lose money. Most of the small operators have been bleeding because uh, customers have started giving us some increase, but that is to the tune of say about 3.5%, whereas the actual increase should be more than 5%. So with every increase, we are able to pass on almost 60% of the actual cost which we incur. 40% is always this thing to us. So the profit margins which are already under pressure, the margins are absolutely not there. So if things go on like this, and I think we are expecting another diesel hike soon. If the war
Yeah.
doesn't end, most of the people are saying that 10 to 12 rupees. I don't know how the small players will survive. Leave alone the small players, even the big players for that matter, because the fuel component is a major, major factor. So right now, when you mention how we are coping, things are in very, very bad shape, and I won't say most, all the transports are currently bleeding because for the first 15 days, no one has passed on the diesel hike from 15th May
Hmm.
onwards. So 1st June onwards, some people have started passing on the fuel hike, but not to the extent what is actually required. So that is the take.
In the second round, if time allows, Ashokji, we want to really understand from you that how the systems also can be made more resilient, because for small fleet owner who is probably owning 5 to 10 truck, it might not be possible even for him to keep absorbing these losses, and and it's practically the last man standing which we need to protect at the end of the day, considering the just transition. So I'm going to park that question and understand how the resilient systems can be created so that at least such shocks can be uniformly absorbed by everyone in the stake, value chain, and not only transporter. And with that, I'm gonna kind of bring Karthik, because Karthik, you come up with a very different perspective. You are the user side, and Amazon has been the one of the largest demand company from the consumer sector, and you have a good mix even today compared to others. uh, how do you see this particular shock coming your way? What are the mechanisms Amazon have created to protect their logistics service provider? Uh, and at the same time, how are we planning? Do you see the business case getting changed because of this fuel shock?
Hey, thank you, Sharvari, for the invite and the opportunity. Um, I think for sure, when we started the climate pledge back in 2019 to get to net zero carbon by 2040, it was, of course, sustainability was at the center of it. But sustainability, I feel, has always been a business risk hedge from the very beginning. If you see our water positive goal or the zero waste to landfill goal or be it net zero carbon, right? It's always has been that there is always a business continuity risk or a shock that is expected if companies don't act, right? Like you see the CAQM regulation coming in or the Delhi EV policy coming in, etc. At some point, the policymakers will be forced to step in for making companies lower their burden on the environment and then to the consumer, right? So I think that has always been the play here within Amazon, that it's not just sustainability, it always has to be a business risk hedge. And that's playing out beautifully now because obviously there is a lot of supply chain disruption that's happening, right, in terms of fuel and all of that. So the mental model or the tenet has always been that Amazon will have to take the first step for our carriers, prove the commercial viability of anything that we want people to adopt, create a favorable ecosystem, and then expect natural adoption to happen. So we don't give mandates or we don't have goals set for our partners, so to speak. But what we actually do is there are about four pillars, right, on the whole um, zero emission trucking scale up. One is, of course, the right product. So from 2019, we've been working very closely with large and small, EV OEMs, so to speak, to develop the right products that suit our requirement. One of the things that come into play is demand signaling there. So if the OEMs know that there is enough demand, why wouldn't they invest in R&D and developing the right product? So that was pillar one. Second is the charging infrastructure that's needed to help the carrier or the delivery partner adopt this technology without having to scramble for where do they charge the vehicle, how much do they pay, etc. Third is the financing aspect of it, wherein all of our vehicles are third party owned. We don't own any vehicle. So they will obviously look for financing these vehicles. The cost of the capital is fairly high. The risk with these assets are high because there is no secondary market. So the person who's extending credit obviously will not have a place. Even if, let us say, somebody defaults, what do they do with the asset, right? So that is something that we try to de-risk by saying we will look at longer term contracts or redeployment of these assets, etc. And the last one, of course, tying back to this, is our own longer term commitment to using EV assets or hand holding the carrier if they have difficulties, right? Because people are taking the risk, and if there is no demand, then they will start losing money. So I think we've been working on all of this and made fair amount of progress, I would say. In last mile, I think the progress has been significant. In middle mile, we've been making steady progress. Now with these supply chain concerns, it's definitely accelerating for sure. I think whatever plans we had for this year, we're definitely going 10x that plan, because the commercials now are much more favorable. The carrier readiness is also there. I think a lot of people are on their own proactively studying about this. Earlier, it used to be a mental block to say EVs nahi chal sakte national highways pe, right? So from that, it has come to a conversation ki sir आप बताओ क्या कर सकते हैं types. At least people have come to the table to listen or at least debate out. That's progress, right? To say what is happening. We are
Absolutely.
trying to work with you, of course, to sort of sound all of the policy asks that we will need to sort of strengthen this and all of that. But there are these multiple things. But I think the center of it is the ecosystem will have to come into play for the logistics provider to adopt and do his business peacefully. Right? If there are 10 things moving and breaking, the logistic service partner cannot be expected to sit in the middle of all of those and solve for it. So I think the underlying tenet is that we solve for the ecosystem, adoption will become natural. And I think the biggest play we have is longer term contracts with them, and the assurance that if they were to, let us say, if some lane we lose business because of demand, etc., we will redeploy the asset somewhere else.
Okay. So just to get the number, how much have been already deployed by Amazon through their carrier partners till now in, say, medium and heavy duty trucking? And what's the aim you go to?
Think for the intra-city application, right, which is from outside of the cities, you feed packages into the cities. Because of quick commerce going up and all of that, we have a few couple of hundred trucks already running with dedicated charging yards. So,
Oh,
and with
amazing.
longer term commitments on the charging cost as well. I think the biggest hedge that partners or transporters like is that the charging cost is a locked in cost for the next 7, 8, 10 years, whatever is this, whatever we signed for, which means that even if diesel keeps going up, their energy cost, electricity, will remain the same. That hedges also with the assumption that renewable energy costs will come down. The blend of renewable energy into electricity will keep
Will
going up.
increase.
So we're fairly confident of keeping that cost constant for the next, and contractually binding also. And for long haul, we're going big now. We should have a few. We have plans to, of course, scale to about 1,000 by 2030, but we should start making big strides starting this year. Again, with having these contractual binding on the energy infra, charging infra setup on highways and all of those things. Of course, we need a lot of help from policymakers of different states on power reliability, grid reliability, and all of that, which, of course, you've been working strongly to sound it off to the policymakers. But I'm sure all of those will fall in line now, because there is interest from the government also to solve for all of this, given the energy security angle.
Correct. Absolutely, absolutely. And with that, I want to bring perspective from Himanshu. Himanshu, you all have been working deployed already multiple like hundreds of truck. Uh, I want to understand more from you that in the current energy crisis, do you see sudden increase in the inquiry from your existing customer? And how does the supply side of the truck look? Mainly, let's understand first your end customer. Do you see the surge in inquiry?
Yeah, absolutely. It has been increased. I have two perspectives particularly into this. Initially, when we have started off with a pilot project, as we are discussing about that, what has the impact has came as a organization which is completely into a green mobility. We have not seen so much of impact. Yeah, absolutely, because of this, because half of the world is into the war and everything is happening and buzzing around. So everyone is buzzing around and running behind the now that they have to shift into the alternate fuel energies, right? So suddenly the inquiry level has been increased. So much of demand has been increased. All the cement companies, majorly we deal with the cement companies and the mineral companies who are into the aggregates. So all the demands have been increased. Lot of inquiries are coming in. And but as per the technology side, it depends that right now in India there is no other player who has came with a facility which have more than 200 numbers of a monthly basis production level, right? So absolutely, it is going to be there is a delay in terms of supply chain and some because of this state of hormone, some of like incremental effect has been came over the supply chain as well. So your end product or a EV truck gets hike because of it. So particularly in fuel, particularly there is no hike for us. But yeah, absolutely for the component part there is a hike, and demand is absolutely has been increased. Lot of inquiries are coming in. Now everyone want to go green, so a lot of inquiries are coming in from the cement and the mineral interest. Yeah.
Okay, Himanshu, you work in the 55 tonner segment
Yeah.
primarily because, and it's one of the most good business candidate when it comes to
Absolutely.
truck electrification.
Yeah.
I want to understand when the diesel have moved now from say 90 to 95, and they say that it is going to go upward. What are the use cases you have seen which were not business positive 3 months back, and now they are suddenly becoming business positive? And what's the volume you expect because of these borderline cases becoming business positive?
So I beg to differ with this, Sharvari. Actually,
Okay.
initially, you know my journey, right? So I've been both the side of the technology. I was one of the main founder who has invented that truck, right? So initially, when we started off, and I came with an idea, let's start a logistic company into this electric mobility, because at that time we were not able to find out a customer who was readily available and he was understanding the financial modality of this entire business case. And at that time, what has happened that we have started with the initial pilot project, which was into Hindustan Zinc. So in that particular contract, there were three major pillars that we wanted a charging facility into their premises. It has to be subsidized rate. So your financial economics should come in, right? Second
Hmm.
was that your green channel has to be there. Either my truck has to be charging or either it should be running continuously, because you have to clock more number of kilometers to churn out the
Correct.
revenue out of it, right?
Correct.
The third major part was that whatever happens into a diesel industry, we will be keeping your freight rate constant for the tenure of, let's say, for 8 years or 10 years. So for me, particularly when we have started at that time, there was a clause that my freight rate will be X plus your fuel. So in our case, it is X
Okay.
plus power, right? So it is
Hmm.
proportionate with the fuel increase incrementally. If let's say 1 or 2 rupees has been increased, my freight rate will be increased. But over a time, what we have seen into the industry, that at initially when we have started in 2022 back, there was not a acceptability of these EV technology. Now we have that technology proven. Everyone is aware about the EV trucks, what is the technology, and all the big players has also come like Tata and Ashok Leyland to this point. So all the customer has also got the awareness about this. Now the industry has been immersed completely. So there is no comparison between diesel truck versus EV truck. So initially when we used to do a TCO, it was a apple to apple comparison between EV trucks versus your diesel truck. Now it
Hmm.
is happening purely about the EV trucks. I believe
Okay.
that particularly this after the emerging the industry, there is not going to be any sort of benefit, particularly the organization which are particularly purely running into EV segments. We are not seeing any sort of a freight hike or something that business case had been became viable. Yeah, absolutely, there is some sort of an inquiry floating here and there. The numbers has been increased, the adaptability has been increased. But I firmly believe that, as Ashokji has rightly mentioned, that adaptability will come only when the entire ecosystem has to be churned out properly, right? Like small players, even the big organization like us who has already inducted, we are the India's largest LSP who was operating with the 500 plus EVs right now, which are already plying on the road, right? So, what is happening that people are not ready to put that much of equity. However, they are seeing that it will be a lucrative business in the long term, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because the asset cost is very high,
Correct.
right? Second is that your wherever you have to put up the charger, you have to see that what is the grid level power you're getting. It was earlier a concept that you're getting it at a cost of 7 or 8 rupees. Now it has come to 12 or 14 rupees when
Correct.
you're going to amortize your capex cost. So your entire ecosystem has to be supportive like that way. And Karthik has rightly mentioned that policy has to incentivize about that. Recently, we have seen that Maharashtra used to give us some sort of incentive on the registration of their electric trucks. Now they are also saying that it is only for the, let's say, initial thousand numbers only. So I am not seeing any sort of a like support from the government policies or that ecosystem which has to properly churn out for the, then only the adaptability and the mass adaptability is going to come, right? Until then, we can't accept that 1 or 2% of the, because this heavy commercial industry is very big, right? You can only see the churnout of 1 to 2% by 2030, what we are estimating. But if you need a mass adaptability, you have to build in the entire ecosystem, which has to be your strategically, financially modeling, and your charging infrastructure. What I firmly believe.
Okay. I'm going to park one question for
Yeah.
you, particularly Himanshu, for like the next round.
Hmm.
Uh, Charging infrastructure utilization is again one of the key to decide what's the landed cost of those electrons when they are transferred to truck.
Absolutely.
With increase in the truck number, that asset utilization for charging infra will go up. And in the next round, we want to understand more from you that how we can take benefit of higher number existing infrastructure getting utilized more, and that benefit getting passed on to you as a LSP. I'm just giving that so that you can bring your thoughts
Yeah.
together. Until that, I'm going to go to Achint. Uh, Achint, Safe Express is a large, diverse fleet across long distance express route and multiple use cases. I want to understand from you because you work in layers. You have your own fleet, you have your attached fleet, and there are contracting which was already in place. As Ashokji mentioned, some of the clauses like AdBlue, tire, 1200 for 20 liter to 1800. It's a huge jump. So how are we creating some of the contracting structure so that we are resilient in nature? And how are you protecting your partners in the process? And at the same time, you have to balance the end user, your client side. So I want to understand, are you getting sandwiched between the two layers or how things are moving for you?
Thanks, Sharvari, first for having me here. And again, thank you because I'll be speaking after four of say. But yes, coming to the contracting part, Ashokji said that there is a 5% clause. Fortunately for Safe Express, it is a rupee 1 clause. So it is not a 5 rupee clause. So if there is a change of rupee 1 in fuel, we give a price increase. The second good thing about us is that we pass it on every 15 days. So on
Okay.
first, it gets passed on. If there is a change in another 15 days, we pass it on again. Coming to the important question that yes, are we getting sandwiched? The answer is yes, because the clients are still not paying. 30-40% of them have agreed to it. Most of them are still, under wait and watch scenario. And they are waiting that let the fuel price settle in, and there was a rumor in between that fuel prices will come down and things like that. So people are still observant and sitting on the side and seeing. But yes, all the cost for a diesel operator has gone up significantly. And more than the cost, what is affecting us is that there is no availability of fuel. So the moment you cross, you go to the eastern part of India, you cross Nagpur, you cross Orissa, you go to West Bengal, not the major cities, but the subsequent towns, there is no fuel, and people are giving not more than 2000 rupees of fuel to the truck owner. So the number of stoppages has increased, and because of which we are losing something which probably Karthik will understand most, which is our tat, the SLA. And the problem with losing tat is not that the customer is getting distracted. Everything falls apart because you have manpower decided to unload and things like that, and then the shift turning and everything happens. So that's a problem. Coming back to the EV side of things, so see, if you see buses for EV, deviating for a
Hmm.
bit, if you see buses for EV, there are a lot of players who came up with all kinds of buses, and because of which the cost of the asset came down.
Hmm.
Similar thing is now happening in a segment where Himanshu is operating, which is cement, steel, metals, port. There are 8 or 9 players which are coming in, new technologies coming in, there is something available. But when you come to industry where I come from, where Karthik is operating, which is retail and e-commerce, it is primarily driven by 32-foot single axles and 32-foot multi axles.
Hmm.
There, the only player present today is Ashok Leyland.
Hmm.
Now, with Ashok Leyland being there, he has no price war. So
Correct.
I have a sustainability target. Karthik has a sustainability target. Both of us want to fight back to Ashok Leyland, bring down the cost. He says, okay, don't do it. Wait, somebody else will do it. Because he also, as a company, does not have a push from the government that you have to, have so many vehicles as We were discussing cafe for a very long time, but nothing, actually materialized.
Correct.
Then the only sector which is now picking up is the intracity bit, wherein we are now clear that we will not use 5 fitters, 8 fitters, 7 fitters, nothing. We'll just use 10 feet standard trucks, because everything else remains the same except the cost of EMI. And now with Tata Motors coming in and Ashok Leyland being probably switch being more aggressive, we are able to place some vehicles. But newer OEMs like Eicher, which is new to SCV segment, or Montra, which is new to SCV segment, the product is good, but the
Hmm.
cost of asset is so high, primarily because they are developing the cabin, the chassis, everything from ground up.
Hmm.
So that is one area which is pinching us, the price part of it. But primarily, intracity is viable. One more thing which has changed because of the fuel hike, which probably would interest a lot. Whatever pilots you see for these 200 to 20-kilometer routes, be it Delhi Agra, be it Delhi Jaipur, be it Delhi Chandi Ambala, all these places, these are non-viable in EV. It's all nonsense that people say that it is viable in EV, primarily because in an EV you need two drivers to do this route, but in a diesel a single driver can do it. So the cost of driver eats
Okay.
away the margins of EV.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
has happened that the moment your fuel touches 104 on the pricing, because Delhi is primarily an CNG market. So if you remove that, the price of diesel pan India today is around 101 rupees. The moment it touches 104 rupees, these routes become viable for us.
Oh, interesting.
And now the only routes which are viable for us with whatever limited, charging infra and whatever you call it is available are routes which are more than 600 kilometers. So if
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
running anything between 600 to 800 kilometers, it's a route.
Hmm.
In three trucks, you need two drivers. You need to stop in between, and that is where the electrification is making sense. So we are trying to now explore that. We don't have hundreds of numbers running with us right now. We're just flying you know, 432-foot single axle vehicles. But the learning was that with the driver cost getting added up, it becomes slightly, not slightly, it becomes almost 3 rupees expensive per kilometer compared to that. And Himanshu also mentioned, if you would have listened, that he was saying that he wanted green channel in cement, in metals and all. The utilization of these assets was very low.
Hmm.
But when you come to e-commerce, when you Amazon's, Flipkart's, deliveries of the world have bought in something called as distributing the fixed cost to so many trips that the cost of fuel technically becomes less than 50%. In
Oh.
vehicles which are running less than 8,000 or 10,000 kilometers in a month, the cost of fuel today is at 60 rupees, 60%.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
in our case, it is almost 47, 48% because the running is high.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
when we are already running the asset for anything between 15 to 20,000 kilometers, we do not have scope to run the asset any further in an EV.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So we are actually waiting for an asset which can run at least 300 kilometers in a single charge. So, and if I am correct, Montra, Tata Motors, and Eicher, all three are working to bring in a 32-foot single and multi on the table. So once that is there, probably there will be some price here and there, and we will be able to see it in some vehicles. So we are just, and there is no help from the government whatsoever. They are all talking. You see a lot of things on the news, but in reality, nothing is getting implemented. So it's a very sad. So you won't believe all our warehouses have diesel pumps near them. We have approached all three major oil companies. We have established charging stations there which are next to our warehouses. So last 6 months we have commissioned close to 350 chargers which are 60 kilowatt and above, primarily to suit our intracity requirement. And yes, if you have to go the mid-mile way, we'll have to create our own charging infra or tie up with likes of Amazon or somebody, wherein we cross utilize our facility, because we can't have more than 2 trips a day or 3 trips a day running for a major city, two to be realistic. So the best case scenario, if we have a dedicated charger in place, we can't use the charger more than 4 hours in a day. So we'll have to devise a strategy wherein the charger utilization increases, and the only way to do that is to tie up with likes of Amazon or Flipkart or Shadowfax or somebody there who is willing to go the EV way. Yeah, so that's about it.
Ajin, thank you so much for this. And the next question which I am parking for you are two. One, the 600 kilometer, three truck, two driver business model, what you said that can be explored by industry going forward. And at the same time, how do we create ecosystem in a way that everyone gets charging when they need it, but at the same time the charging infrastructure utilization is higher to bring down the landed cost of those electrons. How do we really create that system as an ecosystem, as an industry player? Let's keep government out for a second, because this is something industry themselves can create using digital public infrastructure. So we'll come to that in the next round, and I want to bring Maxine in now. Maxine, you have been, like Magenta have been one of the majorly intra-city player till now, and now you have switched to interstate, in intrastate, targeting 180 to 140 kilometer routes, which makes business sense. I want to understand, how do you, in the use cases you are currently running, how the diesel shock from 90 to 95 is changing your life, and how 95, if at all it goes to 100, we hope not, but in case it goes, how it is gonna create issues. And at the same time, how does the inquiry, because your clientele have been different till now and you're going to venture into the new area, how do you see the surge in the new deployment because of the fuel shock?
So first of all, thank you, Sharvari, WRI, and my fellow panelists for this opportunity. And it's been 6 long years trying to make sure EVs are successful. It's been a journey full of education, full of partnerships like Amazon, which was the first customer, essentially. I'll just give a sense of where my responses are coming from and what we're doing right now. So right now we own and operate close to 3,000 electric vehicles. These are largely were three-wheelers, and now four-wheelers. And we, from, like you rightly said, within, last mile, we're just kind of steadily building up. This is supported by our own charging infrastructure. So for these 3,000 vehicles, we have our own, we would not want to say it, but we are one of India's largest CPOs because we charge 3,000 vehicles every day. All right. So that is done on our own charging platform. And like Achint was talking about, the fact that it required us to build the ecosystem ourselves. Right? And the third layer which we built was the technology layer, which allowed us to track where is the vehicle, where the charging infrastructure needs to be. We put some algorithms together. So these are the three co-joint ecosystems which we've put together. And I want to be upfront about the fact that it has been a journey full of challenges. Because Amazon has to serve its customer. And I'm just using Amazon as an example. This is true for everyone. Whether it's an EV or a non-EV, the cost per delivery has to be the lowest. Amazon did go out of its way to provide, support, and like any other customer. But the best part right now, and which I have been forecasting for the last 6 years, is today the question is, earlier the question was why an EV? It went from there to from what is an EV to why an EV. Today the question is why a diesel, right? So to that extent, I think the transition has happened. And one thing is for sure, I think the shocks, the increase in diesel is a constant factor now. Right? I don't think that needs to be even it's non-debatable, right? Even if the prices stabilize to a slightly lower, but the shocks are going to be there for sure. And businesses don't run on shocks; they run on constant supply. and the constant supply of electricity is something which at least I believe is a positive one, where the cost of battery is reducing, the ecosystem players are increasing, and the one from a fuel to fuel perspective, there are no shocks. Literally, I mean, there shocks are there in the electric version, but there are no fuel cost shocks. Right? I'm just trying to make the situation lighter, but that's a fact, right? So here today, a business like ours or any other transportation business can able to see. It's not about the cost, whether it's a higher or lower. It's the impact of shocks which is worse for a business.
It's the unpredictability which
Unpredictability.
kills more.
Correct.
Correct.
If I know that my electric vehicle is higher, which we did, and we baked it into the cost of service to a customer, right? And the customer, we had open conversations. I'm very happy Karthik is here. He's one of the first ones to support the EV transition. So this is where we are right now. So how I'm looking at it today is, today there is, earlier it was driven by sustainability mandates on their annual reports. Today, a EV transition is defined by the PNL on the same reports. Is
Nice.
because, and this is a great thing to happen, really speaking. So the reason to go to EV is changed, at least in the last mile. I'm not saying that challenges are offset, and I know Himach is doing a great job there in terms of the long hauls, but the pains remain. But what we have seen, and I'm unbiased on the fact that I'm still learning, right? Is that when we analyze the ecosystem, we realize that the ability to provide a service will depend upon the number of products available in that space, which is the OEMs, and that defines. I'm not able to reduce the battery cost, but I will be able to provide. I mean, the ecosystem will provide a better cost of the vehicle and the service of the vehicle. So we focused on the last mile initially, which is the three-wheelers. And I remember we were partners with many of the OEM to build some of these vehicles. We took those vehicles, we did a CTT and VTT, which is vehicle trial and testing, trial testing at places like IKEA, Amazon, and others. So we were part of that. And slowly that journey today, what we feel that a three-wheeler is stabilized. In fact, unknown to many, the TCO of a three-wheeler electric is much better than
Yeah. Correct.
especially in the
Diesel.
passenger segment. If you see the reports, you'll come to know that. Now, slowly the same that is stabilized. So we for us now our competition is not other competitors. There is no competition for us. It's the same original people who used to run those vehicles, the independent individual drivers, who have now started to realize the TCO, and hence they have adopted it a lot bigger than us. So it's gone back to them. So now the shift has gone to four-wheelers, and now we are working the four-wheeler space doing, I will call it, I wouldn't want to call it mid-mile, but I will call it slightly extended last mile and mid-mile. We believe the TCOs are falling in place. Now, the best part there is the charging infrastructure is not capex heavy, purely because it's a land deal and not the infra space. Because
Correct.
there, you can use AC charging, especially at times when the vehicles are not running. So
Correct.
whatever said and done, other than long hauls, which is the final first mile, etc., which Himanshu is doing, many of these vehicles are actually, there's a downtime, natural downtime in the evenings, which we are using for charging. So I think it is playing out. I still feel that three-wheeler, the TCOs are in place. The four-wheeler TCOs are falling in place. And I'll just give you some numbers. Today, our vehicles, especially in the 180, 200 kilometers range, I'm actually, Magenta has decided to move to that space. Right? Because two things which are happening from a company like us, a corporate structure, for the same amount of manpower and deployed, our corporate cost is lesser when it goes to a larger ecosystem.
Correct.
Right. Only thing is we wanted to make sure the TCOs from an EV versus diesel were to fall place, and that has already started falling in place. So today we see a lot of focus out there. We were one of the first ones to test the 55 tonner, and nothing about the business model of what Himanshu is doing a great job. We believe that for us, it will take a lot of time before we go to the long hauls, because there's enough to be solved in this space. Unfortunately or fortunately for us, many people went all out to start deploying without understanding the economics. Right, and they started to undercut. Achint was talking about it, if I remember. We provide something and someone comes with an undercut value, and then they're not able to provide that service for long, and hence there's a loss of not only face for that company but also on EV. We decided to say no, we will stick to our cost patterns. We will openly share it with you. We'll decide the profit margins, and we work with that. So that allowed us to stay continued. And today, fortunately for us, despite all the challenges, I think we are sorted that way. We believe that From three-wheelers, now we'll go to the four-wheeler space. And Achin was giving the numbers. For us, the day I get a vehicle which can run for 300 kilometers,
Hmm.
right, on a single charge at a certain cost, I will not give out the cost right now. I think this place is ready to boom because every Bolero, which is called the Bolero market, not, I'm using names now, the Bolero market, as they call it, as the cargo market, that's a bigger place where what do you say, decarbonization has to happen. Also, that is also one of the biggest space where most pollution happens. So if I'm looking
Yeah.
at it positively, that if the diesel prices are on the increasing, it is, I know it is negatively impacting many of it, but it will allow, give it a few 6 months. I think it will, we will, the EV operators will be able to provide a positive turn to it.
I think it's a behavior pattern which is gonna get impacted, and the behavior pattern is normally far effective.
Right.
And if thank you so much, Maxon, for the technology layer point what you brought. If time allows, I want to really understand how the technology layer can be replicated, can be expanded at an ecosystem level, because that is essentially one of the major gray area for us as an ecosystem. The question is, how do we run our ecosystem, the overall 4 million truck what run effectively? And technology layer is going to solve that problem, so we can come to that. I'm going to now I have 10 minutes and I have 5 people, so I'm going to literally give 2 2 minutes. And the second round, Ashok ji, I'm coming back to you. We have parked one question, that how do we really create a resilient structure, a system in place, so that the last person standing on the line, the smaller LSP, should not bleed? And how do we save him from that? How do we create that resilient structure?
Survey, I think the government needs to step in for small, very small things. For example, like the government fixes rates for taxis, auto rickshaws, even for airline fares and all that. We are not asking to fix them rates. In fact, they can fix the rates also. It's a very simple logic. What is our cost and what should be the margin? But let's okay. I mean, it's a very big market, so people can quote whatever they want to quote. But certain items like the diesel hike, everybody knows. So let's have a fixed formula for that. Maybe the government can step in just for that. Okay, 1 rupee hike. This should be the hike which should be passed on.
Impact. Hmm.
Something of that sort. And maybe the second big thing which I always feel, I mean, why the small players are bleeding is the idle time which they stand at either the loading point or the unloading point. Most of the people don't take this point, but I have seen that people pay peanuts. Now the cost of a diesel vehicle is around 40 lakhs. When we talk about, she talks about a 32 feet vehicle, 32 feet multi-axle is 40 lakhs. And imagine a customer doesn't pay for 24 hours, and after that he pays over 1,000, 1,500 rupees. And in FMC sector mainly, there are retention of 4 to 7 to 8 to 10 days.
Wow.
That long, and then you are being paid about 1,500. The small operator will die.
Correct.
So the government must step in for some basic this thing. Government, in fact, for green energy, they keep on saying कि ये करना वो करना, but करते कुछ नहीं है. अश्विन ने बिल्कुल सही कहा. टोल फ्री कर दो. आपको अगर डीजल का इतना तो इसको अगर आपको बढ़ावा देना है EV vehicles को, make it toll free. अगर at least let's say the return journey, something of that can be done by the government, and it can work out because you have less time to बाकी
Yeah.
members make a talk with them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashok ji. I'm going back to Karthik. Karthik, you said locked in charging cost for say 8 to 10 year for your charging infrastructure. Uh, how have you managed to get there? Because that means you have assurance about the charging infrastructure. That means the entire backend planning is happening that way. Can you throw very quickly some light how you are able to manage locked in cost for charging infrastructure or
think
charge of
single
electrons?
Yeah, the short answer is demand predictability. So if I know what is my scale up plan for the next 3 years at least, there is a hard plan on how many sites will come up, how much demand I'll have, right? And we miss it. We near about, at least with a 10% margin, we land there usually, right? In terms of customer scale up and all of that. With that confidence and with internal alignment with multiple businesses, miles that we have internally, that this percentage or this part of the business will scale electric vehicles. For this, you have your topology plan where you have so many sites coming up near those sites. Because when we go into a new city, let us say, and we are setting up a large warehouse there, we are signing at least a 6 to 8 year lease there, right, for those buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So which means that
Correct.
we'll be there for 8 years.
Correct.
And while you're there, then might as well give a commitment to somebody setting up a charging yard next door for the same tenure. So then there is
Correct.
no confusion about how long we'll stay there, how long the business continuity will exist. The challenge has been on grid reliability. So when they set up there, they don't know today. Let's say the grid reliability is 90%, right? Will that 90 go to 100, 95 over the next 10 years? We have no clarity. And hence, the charge point operator is forced to set up a diesel genset.
Oh,
The cost of that and the number of hours, there is ambiguity on how many hours the DG will run, right? So that landed cost of whatever we negotiate for the 8 years, the CPO is taking a risk or a hedge there with an assumption that reliability will improve. But that is something that structurally we'll need to help or solve through policy advocacy, and all states have to come because it's a state subject.
it's a discom
Uh,
subject.
Right. And when you talk about national corridors, then you're cutting across different states. So let's say I'm talking about a Delhi, Chennai, I cut across 7 states. All
Mm-hmm.
7 states have to come together. If one state in between, right, Maharashtra or MP, let us say, don't have a policy in favor of improving grid reliability, that whole lane will not work, right?
Correct.
So that is something that we'll have to solve. But I think if demand is predictable, long-term contract, and the companies are committed. At this point, I don't think any company is saying we will not look at electric trucks. In fact, there are companies who are
Correct.
driving more goals internally, etc. So it's a
Great.
function of that commitment passing through to the carriers and the charge point
To the
operators who are
CPO.
actually making the investment. One
I,
last thing I'd like to add is the capital infusion also. We would, if the principal, like a large company, stands behind the capital that's going into setting up the charging infra, to say that, we have backed this with a longer term contract, but you will have to reduce your rate of financing that capital. That also helps. Yeah.
Great. I want to build very quickly on that. In case of Amazon, because you have the fairly good pattern data analysis predictability, Himanshu, in your case, the mathematics changes.
Yeah.
That much technology backup is not there in the sector you work in. How are we really creating charging infrastructure utilization assurance so that the cost of electrons landed in the truck goes down? Very, very brief remarks.
So initially, when we have started off, we used to set up a charging in premises inside the plant setup where the loading and unloading happens. Now, what we have done, we have taken out the entire thing into our premises where our truck parks in, right? So I'll tell you, for particularly as compared to the like ultra light commercial vehicle, which particularly Amazon operates, HD8 is completely different, right?
Hmm.
So our technology has been evolved from 258 kilowatt to now 475 kilowatt. The charger has been expanded from 140 to, let's say, close to 360 kilowatt. Earlier the time was 90 minutes, now it is 60 minutes. So what we do a time motion study. So I charge my 50 trucks with the 8 chargers. So my uptime of the charger itself, it is more than 18 to 22 hours on a per day basis. And the units we consume on a monthly basis over a 50 trucks, it is close to 8 lakh to 9 lakh units. So and how we have planned it, like in our particular case, most of the vehicles are running into Rajasthan and Odisha. So what we
Hmm.
have done, we have clubbed the entire fleets. Let's say my
Hmm.
Rajasthan operates with 150 or 200 numbers. So what we have done now, we are coming with the 10 megawatt to 15 megawatt of solar plant. So we are going at a next level where we will be creating an entire charging facility, and we are keeping this intent that we are going to not keeping it as a capex. We are going to generate a revenue out of it. We are going to facilitate with the other LSPs as well and other OEMs as
Yeah.
well. So all the operators should look like that way. That the charging infrastructure should be like a generating a revenue rather than just an liability for them. That
Correct.
time and motion study has to be there, and they can churn out easily. For in our case, I'll tell you, for to put up a setup of this, it costs somewhere around 9 crores, and I'm taking out my ROI within 2 years.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Great. Because we are at time, I'm going to go
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It has been a very interesting conversation, and there are many case studies which actually can come out of this. I'm gonna go to Achint and Maxon, literally one line. Achint, how do you think supply side regulations like cafe can actually push manufacturers to bring more models? I'm sorry, I'm changing your park question, but I know you can
Yeah. So
answer on the
yeah,
go.
it took me by shock, no problems. See, if cafe comes in place and people are forced to make EV vehicles, they'll be forced to sell them as well. So the pressure comes on them. So they work on cost modeling and not on making, exorbitant profits by selling few numbers. So once that profit gets distributed over a set of vehicles, then the cost prices will come down. The prices will come down, and then right now, if you're buying a heavy commercial vehicle, it's 3.5 to 4x the cost. A small
Hmm,
commercial vehicle is two
correct.
times the cost. This has to come down.
Hmm,
No matter what happens. What Ashok ji said is that a lot of vehicles are parked. They are not utilized. The running is less. So in that scenario, the fixed asset cost is which is hurting them more. So yes, cafe will
correct.
help if it is implemented across and people are forced to, create vehicles which are with alternate fuels.
Let's as an industry we need to push really hard for the supply side regulation so that we have a stability in the ecosystem. Maxine, last question. You have
And
built
the electricity charging.
Yeah. So I think these are the two, three very key point we have to kind of push as an ecosystem to go to the next level. And Maxine, last but not the least, technology layer have helped you to keep the profitability high in the initial period. How do we really build that at an ecosystem level? Literally two lines.
Only one line. Data
Okay.
sharing across charging partners, because that's what is required. Everyone is looking for a single app. No one is having it. The next stage would be this shared across B2B customers like us, both from a vehicle availability, charging availability. I think that's what is required, which is next stage. And the best part about EV is it throws so much data. It's about coming together and using data and optimizing it. I think that's my straight answer across.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And it has been always amazing learning every time I speak to any one of you. And thank you so much for bringing that 1 hour out of your schedule and amazing insight. There are multiple case studies which can come out of this, and we'll try and work with you guys on that. And there are very clear action points where we need to communicate with government through policy discussions, whether it is harmonization in terms of distribution, companies, activity, grid reliability, data sharing app, all of that. And mainly supply side regulations like CAFE to bring more model at a cost competitive price. And with that, thank you everyone, the panelists, and more importantly, everyone who have attended this. We know if there are any questions which we have not addressed, we will be happy to collate them, post it to the speaker and get answers for you. So thank you, all this observers and the listeners as well. Thank you everyone. Have a nice day. Have an amazing weekend ahead.
Yeah. Okay, bye.